Welcome everyone to our community podcast. And today I welcome Robert from Oregon, United States. Hello, dear.
Namaste, Anneke. Thank you for inviting me to talk with you.
Oh, such a pleasure to see you again. And yeah, maybe you can give a brief introduction about yourself.
So I am a retired medical doctor. I got interested in Buddhism when I was a teenager, and when I was in my early 20s, I started in yoga and became a student of Yogi Bhajan and got involved in the Sikh religion and converted to the Sikh religion and took a Sikh name and did that and the practices associated with it for 20 years. And then one thing led to another, and my wife and I and our children, we ended up leaving and moving away from that community. And then only since I retired, I encountered Leon and Mindo, and I've gotten involved with working with them for the last several years.
Wow, that was a nice sum up of your life almost.
Right, there's 70 years in a minute.
Oh, that's so amazing. Yeah, you mentioned it briefly. So what brought you on this spiritual path?
After we had left the Yogi Bhajan's organization, I hadn't done much with my spiritual path really, except go to work. You know, I was a doctor. I went to work every day. I worked terribly long hours, and after years, 30 years of that, got burned out and retired early. And after that, decided that I needed to get back working on my spiritual path again, and kept I guess really that I look back on it, I was really praying that I could meet a teacher and find a teacher. And eventually, I guess Leon found me, or I found her, but I think the teacher finds you, really.
Yeah, and you once mentioned you had a dream, right? You told me you had a dream.
Yeah, I actually had several dreams, I think probably of Leon. It was like a female spiritual teacher. Let's see. In one, she was not looking for publicity or to be famous. She just worked one-on-one with people and was kind of private. And she lived on an island in the Mediterranean, which was pretty cosmic. And so I said to her secretary in the dream, how can I get a hold of her and schedule an appointment? And she said, don't worry, she'll find you. And so sometimes when I take a nap, I listen to Reiki relaxation videos, and somehow one of Leon's satsangs came up. And I just thought, I don't even know what she's talking about, but there's so much light that's coming out of her. I need to find out more. And so I watched some satsangs and started working one-on-one with her. And since then, it's all just been, very profound and very deep. And I always am grateful that Leon and Mindo's teachings are in alignment with the teachings of Guru Nanak and the Divine Light and Sound Stream, and it's just a further explanation of all of that.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that it's so much in alignment with you and your path and the things you did before, right? With Kabir.
Yeah. I remember after the India retreat, she told me about that she had gone, and I wasn't at the India retreat, but afterwards they went and visited a Gurdwara, and she had experience of Guru Nanak and the 10 Gurus, and had a mystical experience of that. And I thought, well, this is good for me.
Yes. Yeah, and we just come back a couple of weeks ago, right? Is it 2 months? We returned from the retreat in Nepal. How are you feeling?
I feel like it was very uplifting, and consciousness was raised up to higher levels, and much easier to stay in the higher state of consciousness, and much easier to stay inspired, and um, definitely a major big experience, and a positive, uh, um, a lot of light, very bright light, a lot of light. Just your mind gets filled with light.
Yeah, so your background is very different, right? You've been a doctor and also you were quite spiritual partly in your life. And how we can see in your background, you are very much you are very much an artist as well, right?
Yeah, since I retired, I've gotten into photography and artificial intelligence kind of art, which is what this background was made with a Mid-Journey AI program. But you have to look at it like it's a tool. You can use it to do good things, or you can use it to do bad things. But it can be used as a good thing. Um, but it's fun to play around with,
Yeah,
and
it's amazing. It looks so beautiful. It looks like, yeah, yeah.
I think I made about 50 of those. So that was one of the better ones.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah, so besides being a doctor for so long, yeah.
Yeah, so when I was a resident, an intern and a resident, that's like the hard part of the training, when you have to be at the hospital for, days, several days in a row. You have to be there all night a lot of times, and don't get much sleep. And at the time, we lived in Phoenix, Arizona, and there was a large American Sikh community there. And we had like an ashram, and had morning yoga and meditation. Um, and so when I would just be exhausted, I would go over to the morning meditation at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I would do the yoga exercises, and then I would just have a blanket and curl up on the floor and fall asleep for an hour, and then wake up for the end part of it. But nobody minded it. A lot of other people were probably sleeping too. But
This was like
but
30 years ago, or when
so
was
this was like in the 1980s, 1990s,
it?
which doesn't seem like very long ago. Um, but yeah, we lived in Phoenix for 10 years with a pretty big community there, uh, and I think it was interesting to be spiritual and to be a doctor. I mean, just first of all, on the level of compassion, like all of your patients, no matter how they got into trouble, you have to have compassion for them, and to see what can you do to help them. Even if even if they were drunk and they punched their fist through a window, like you still had to stitch up their arm.
Hmm.
Um, or even if they were alcoholics and drank themselves to death, you had to do what you could to. You couldn't have judgment on that they got what they deserved or anything. You just had to feel like, well, we'll do what we can to patch them up and get them going again. And um, so much of it was things that people did to themselves, but not always. There were a lot of just diseases. But once in a while you could get into the end of it, of like, um, what karmas or past life things led this person to this disease, or this, even what life situation, but like what past life situation too.
So you've always been quite intuitive, right? And also I know that you have many images and dreams.
Yeah, another important one was, before I went to medical school, I lived in Buffalo, New York, and there was a small ashram, a small community there. And when I first moved there, I would move there to go to graduate school, and eventually got PhD in biochemistry. Uh, but I had during the morning meditation, I had a vision that I looked out the window and there was a car with MD license plates. It used to be they would make license plates for cars, and if you were a doctor, they would put MD on it so that you could double park or park in a no parking zone and get away with it. And so I thought that was God telling me that it was in my destiny that I could be a medical doctor. So it took 4 years after that till I could get accepted into medical school. It didn't happen instantly, and I had, and for a long time I didn't think it would ever happen, but I just kept feeling that it was, if it was God's will, it would happen, and even if I couldn't see how exactly.
Wow.
And it did, and I guess I feel very fortunate to have been able to, be in a position to be able to help people. I'm sure as a teacher is similar. You're in a position to really be able to help people and make a positive impact in people's lives, and you try to bring that reverence every day when you go to work. You can't have a bad day as such.
Yeah, I guess no matter in which section you work, whatever you do, you can always have an impact.
Yeah. So I always felt very, very blessed to be in that situation, because, like I say, it didn't. It took some stress and anxiety to get there. For a long time, I didn't think it would ever happen.
Yeah, it seems like it was supposed to happen for you, right? To be a doctor.
That's what I felt like. As a child, and in school, I always thought, I'll be a doctor when I grow up. I'll probably be a doctor. I always thought that, and so it did end up happening. But I had to go through graduate school first, and kind of got overeducated, I suppose. But
Mhm.
it all was beneficial.
Mm. Yeah, and then you had like a spiritual phase where you were very dedicated, how you once told me, right? And then there was a break, right? Where you didn't do any spiritual things until this.
Yeah, so we left Yogi Bhajan's organization in 1996, and I moved to a different state and took a different job and kind of started over again. And still I worked really hard and worked long hours and saw a lot of people. And that was sort of like a working meditation that, each patient, you had to be there present for each patient. If you had a difficult patient, the next person you had to spend equal amount of energy and concentration on. And even if there were, 22 people a day, they all had to be, you were the only doctor they were going to see that day. Even if you were going to see 22 people, you were
Wow.
the only doctor that they saw. So you had to be at your best for each one.
Mhm. Yeah, quite stressful also, right? So
Yeah, a lot of long hours, um, but yeah, but still, I'm, today grateful that I was able to be in that position to help people.
right. Yeah. And yeah, coming back to like meeting Leon, how was your first session with her? Do you remember?
Yeah, the first session with her, we did the meditation, and I felt a pop, or heard a pop, and felt like I had been in a bottle and that I had just come out of the bottle. And I suppose the bottle is like your mind, and so I had popped and come out, or like a genie coming out of a bottle.
Mm. Mm.
Um, but yeah, so after that, since then, I think that was 2 or 3 years ago, and then work with her like every month or every other month,
Mm.
and then try to do the satsangs most weeks, um, and just try to be steady. I don't know. I still do a lot of the practices in the morning. Every morning, I try to get up early in the morning before dawn, and I recite the Japji prayer of Guru Nanak, and then do some of the mantras, but mostly silently. And try to do that for an hour or two in the morning, and then try to meditate again in the evening.
It's a
And
Guru
then
just as an explanation for the audience, it's an Guru Nanak.
So Guru Nanak was a founder of the Sikh religion, and so he lived in a part of India where there were both Hindus and Muslims, and so he said there's no difference between a Hindu and a Muslim. Uh, in God's eyes, they're all just the same. And he taught that there was one God or one reality that was the source of everything. And then he had 10. There were 10 gurus that were his successors. And then after that, the 10th guru said that after that, the Sikh scripture would be the guru. So if you needed guidance or you could go and open the scripture at random and look for the answer. So I still am heavily influenced by all of those practices because I did all that for such a long time. It's just in there, and it just comes easily.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And how would you describe your journey so far? Like looking back 2-3 years and now with Leon and with Mindo.
Like I say, I think everything that they teach is like a further explanation of a lot of the things that Guru Nanak taught. Like Guru Nanak would say, there are, worlds upon worlds, and there are millions of Shivas, Indras, and Brahmas, and Vishnus, and there are millions of Buddhas and yogis and sages, and there are worlds upon worlds, and Mindo lays it all out in a more definite cosmology. But in Guru Nanak talks about Sachkhand, and so it all goes together very well with Mindo and Leon's teachings. And I feel like I'm just walking further on that same path.
Mm-hmm.
Like I haven't changed anything that I'm doing. I'm just doing more of it in a more directed way.
Yeah. How would you describe your progress along the way? Your consciousness journey.
It gets, I think you'll have 2 or 3 weeks where you feel pretty happy and blissful, and then you'll have a week or two where you just feel like you have resentment, or you have stuff you're working with, and you're just, there's just things you have to clear. And it's not that you have to be happy all the time. It's then when you're not happy, you have to keep working on it. You can't give up. You have to say, you're just going to keep going ahead. You're going to keep moving ahead, and you're going to acknowledge it and get past it.
Yes, and stay dedicated, right? And I know you also do now the soul seed mantra.
Yes, I do this. I try to do that every day or almost every day, and you certainly feel like it stirs things up. I think when I first started doing that, I would sometimes see things that were not pleasant that had happened a long time ago, killing somebody or being killed, or but then I would say lately it's not so much. I just feel like it's probably happens on another level, and it gets processed, and it's not so much maybe not dealing with a lot of the same physical realities. It's at a different level, maybe. It's much smoother. It's gotten much smoother.
Yes.
Well, and because I think when you start with that, with the soul seed mantra and the karma clearing, you have to be at a stage of consciousness where if you see yourself drowning someone, you have to be able to step back from it and just be the observer and the awareness. You can't be, right in it. You have to step back and say, that was something that must have happened a long time ago. I'm not sure who that was or what that was or why that was. It's not very pleasant, but we'll just let it go.
Yes.
Whereas if you're in a different state of consciousness, you would kind of be overwhelmed with those things and get bogged down in it, I think.
Yes, that's true. And judge yourself and drown.
Right. You can't feel like, you just have to feel like a lot of bad things happened in the past. That's why we're here. We're just trying to get clear these things, and we have to forgive and move on.
Yeah, that's true. How would you describe Divine Marga to someone who never heard about it?
Boy, I kind of feel like Divine Marga is a path for people who are ready for it. I would say, when you're ready for it, you will find it, and it integrates a lot of teachings of different spiritual lineages, but it like takes the good parts of several different things and utilizes them for what they're best at. Like some of it is, I think probably the two pillars of it are, like, on the one hand, the devotional divine love aspect, and on the other hand, the jnana yoga of um, not this and not that. I am not this and I am not that. In more purifying mentally, but it combines them both, because I think you probably need the devotion to drive the other one.
Yes, that's true. I mean, it combines, it includes so many different pathways and traditions and lineages, which is so beautiful, right?
Yeah, I think they really, Leon and Mindo really take an inclusive view. They don't tell anybody that they can't, if somebody comes to them, then they're meant to be here. If somebody finds them, they're not, whether somebody comes from mostly a Christian or a Buddhist or a Hindu or a Sikh tradition, they can work with any of those, and they know the higher aspects of all of those.
Yes, yes, they are knowledgeable of all paths. And it's all one actually. So
But they do know, like, the specifics of, like, a lot of different yoga traditions. I know that Leon, I think, was involved in different yoga traditions and has studied a lot of yoga in the past, and is incredibly knowledgeable about things.
is there anything else you like to share? Having all this amazing life, is there anything you like to share?
Sure. When I was younger and first started doing yoga, I had this dream that there was a river that was moving really fast, and I was swimming across it as hard as I could swim. And I almost got to the other side, and I realized that the current was going to sweep me away. And at the last minute, somebody reached out and grabbed a hold of me and pulled me in, a woman. So I just think in the spiritual path, you have to swim as fast and as hard as you can. But in the end, you're going to make it by grace. You only make it by grace, but you still have to try, because if you don't try as hard as you can, you won't be in a position for anybody to grab a hold of you.
Oh, that's very beautiful. Yeah, you have to do your work, and by grace, you will always be supported. Oh, dear Robert, it was so wonderful talking to you, and yeah, getting to know you better. And
Yeah, Anneke, thank you. It was I really enjoyed it, and I hope that it's beneficial to other people who may be in the community, or people who may be wondering about the community and wondering about Divine Marga.
oh, I'm sure it is. It's so, yeah, it's so nourishing and beneficial for everybody, right? To hear about all of our different life paths and journeys.